Africa Investor Today is proudly brought to you in association with Petro SA and Afrexim Bank. Good day and welcome to it, Africa Investor Today, where we bring you the latest in business news from Africa. I am Avon Middleton. We start with politics and economy. On Tuesday, President Barack Obama met with 24 African leaders who shared their concerns about struggling economies and political instability. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the president of Liberia, spoke passionately about the importance of job creation and education to her country. This, according to a diplomat who had been briefed on the session, but spoke on the condition that he not be named. Whereas Rwandan President Paul Kagame, whose country, like Liberia, is still recovering from a brutal civil war, asked for more investment and better trade relations with the United States. And Africa's negotiator in UN climate change talks said on Tuesday he was encouraged by the message coming from industrialized countries at a summit in New York aimed at breaking the deadlock before December. Nearly 100 heads of state and government were in New York for a summit on climate change before official talks among 190 nations in Copenhagen in December to forge a replacement to the Kyoto Protocol, which runs out at the end of 2012. The talks have put developed and developing countries at odds over how to distribute emissions curbs. Poorer nations are pressing richer ones to contribute hundreds of billions of dollars a year to help them cope with rising temperatures. We take a look at news out of East Africa in our next segment. Do stay with us as we take a short break.
Redefining energy means redefining life. At the Petroleum, Oil and Gas Corporation of South Africa, our commitment to greater innovation and greener fuels has made us pioneers in the field of gas-to-liquids technology. It has also earned us worldwide recognition for producing the cleanest fuels through environmentally friendly processes. That's how we've become the international leader in diesel technology. Through pure innovation, pure energy, pure brilliance.
And in some companies and markets news, Altec has increased its stake in Kenya Data Networks to 60.8% to further entrench its presence in East Africa, where broadband demand is expected to increase tenfold over the next 3 years. The JSE-listed firm bought an additional 9.8% stake for $39.5 million. The money would be invested in KDN's fiber optic network to entrench the company as the key provider of broadband internet capacity in East Africa. An US-based private equity group, Emerging Capital Partners, or ECP, said on Tuesday it had invested 1.87 billion shillings in East African telecoms and media firm Wananchi to expand its network infrastructure. ECP, which has already invested heavily in Africa's fast-growing telecom sector, said the upgrade would allow the firm to offer digital pay television, high-speed internet, and internet telephony services. We bring you more news right after this short break.
Afrexim Bank is Africa's leading trade finance bank, an organization dedicated to promoting African trade through credit, risk-bearing and advisory services. We pride ourselves on having local presence throughout the continent and are committed to extending our award-winning trade and project finance programs to unlock private sector development continent-wide. We invite you to become a part of our vision for a strong Africa in a changing world. If you trade within Africa, contact us to support you.
In banking and finance news, according to the CEO of Nigeria's central bank, the bank will push for coordinated cross-border banking supervision in Africa during the IMF's annual meeting in Turkey next month. Nigerian Central Bank Governor Lamido Sanusi told BBC Radio he would meet with African central bankers at the IMF conference to find a way to build a regulatory framework for the continent. Such a framework would make it easier for Africa to deal with regulators such as Britain's Financial Services Authority, the US Federal Reserve, and China's central bank. In other news, the Board of Directors of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, or OPIC, today approved up to $250 million to expand a successful partnership with Citi that provides microfinance lending to borrowers in emerging markets worldwide. The facility has the potential to reach more than 480,000 borrowers. The project represents the expansion of a $100 million OPIC City microfinancing funding facility launched in December 2006. Under this program, City and OPIC are providing financing to 23 MFIs in 13 different countries. We're going to take a small break. We bring you more news in just a moment.
Africa Investor, the leading African investment magazine, is essential reading for investors in Africa, filled with the very latest in Pan-African investment and finance news. In addition, log on to africa-investor.com to find out more about our exciting capital market infrastructure and tourism events, and our long-standing investable Africa Investor 100 Index series, which tracks over $600 billion of African equities. Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
In our infrastructure news update, the government of Southern Sudan will construct its first modern port along the White Nile River in Juba at a cost of 800 million shillings. A senior government official told The Standard that Damien Shipyard has been contracted to do the work, which will take 1 year to complete. Southern Sudan's Director General for River Transport under the Ministry of Transport and Roads, Abdou Sileh, said dredging along the river course will be required in some locations to make it more navigable. And further east, the Kenyan Coast Water Services Board has received 7 billion shillings funding from the World Bank and French Development Agency AFD for the rehabilitation of worn-out water infrastructure. Currently, the water demands for the region's 3.4 million stands at 480,000 cubic meters per day, whereas the Water Services Board manages to supply only 70,000 cubic meters per day to consumers due to old water facilities. The Water Services CEO said the board has so far received 3 billion shillings from the World Bank, while the 4 billion shillings from AFD would be channeled before the end of the month. And with that, we close this Thursday's edition of Africa Investor Today. Be sure to log on to our website for more insights on African business news. That is on www.africa-investor.com. From all of us here, thank you for joining us. Africa Investor Today is proudly brought to you in association with Petro SA and Afrexim Bank.